Hello there. Thank you for watching this video. I would like to show you an in-depth look at glazing, the watercolor glazing technique, which is where we paint over dry paint. And the reason we do this is because we want to add dimension to our painting, add different values, darker values to our painting, and it's how we go over our base layer. Now I am starting with this really nice Fabriano Artistico paper, which is extra white. It's 140 pound, but more importantly, it's artist paper. So you'll see other 140 pound paper that will not behave as well as this paper will. This is really nice paper. This is a new block for me. I haven't tried this paper before, but I'm really enjoying it, and I think it may become my favorite. So, but I'm also going to show you in this video glazing on lesser quality papers, just so you can kind of get a feel for it. But first, let's start with really nice paper. And by really nice, what it is it's not only that it's a heavier weight paper, but the absorbency is good. The paper will allow the paint to sink in, but not too fast, so that you can even still, move it around a little bit while it's wet. And that just is it makes it fun to paint because you have more time for different things. So let's just start with a glaze here. So first what I'm gonna do is I'm going to wet my paints. And I have a Princeton Aqua Elite round number 10. This comes in a really nice set and is probably my favorite synthetic brush. They're a little more expensive than some synthetic brushes, but very pleasing to use because they mimic more the feel of a natural hair brush. Not entirely, but a little bit more. So I'm gonna glaze this little spot here, and I'm just gonna try to get some paint here. And my palette's really messy, so I'm gonna kind of freshen up this. I keep yogurt lids so that I can have clean colors. A red lid is not ideal. A white would be better, but I don't have one right now. So actually I do, but it has yellow on it. So we'll just use this one. But that's okay because I can also test my color. If I can find my little test. Here we go. I keep little cards around so that I can, maybe the back of something I didn't like. And then I can just test my colors like that. So I would like this to be have a little more, whoa, my goodness. I would like this to have a little more action, a little more going for it here. So I'm gonna get a little more paint, a little more water. And let's see how that is. A little darker. You know what I might do actually is touch just a hint into this purple, because that will add a little value. Do a little bit more. There we go. And now let's get a little more pink because I feel like I might need a little more paint. Okay, and then I'm going to swirl this brush around in this paint. And then I'm going to decide which side I want to make darker. I'm actually going to make this side darker because then I get a nice contrast with this water bloom that happened here. When I touched this to this and it was still wet, it made this nice water bloom. And so if I make this dark, that will accentuate this water bloom. So let me just go ahead and put this color down. And you'll see that I am kind of using, I'm twisting myself a little bit so that you can see, but also I am using kind of the tip of my brush so that I get to the line, and then I can kind of push some paint out. Maybe we'll do it up here too. And then what I can do is rinse my brush out. Since it's synthetic, I do have to push it on the bottom of the water canister a little bit, and then just kind of shake off the water, and then I can soften it so that I don't have, a weird line there of what I did. It makes a soft effect. Now I can also touch that out even more and pull that, and then I won't have any line. And then that will all interact really nicely with that water. If I wanted, I could lift it up. It's moving. I'm off camera. It's moving, not very much, a little bit. I'm getting a little bead of water there that I'll pick up. You don't have to. Especially on nice paper like this, you can really add the water and it will be just fine. Now what I can also do, now that I've glazed this, if I want maybe the edge to be a little darker, let's come over here to this color, nice purple, and I can drop that in. And now that this is called charging, and since it's wet, I don't really have to do much to, I'm not gonna get a hard line because it's already wet there. So it'll just kind of nicely blend in. All right, let's do that again. Let's do one. You know what I'm trying to do is kind of add value to this picture. I have some dark here and here and here. I have a line, but I would like a few more dark shapes. This is kind of an important place. If my orientation is this way, this is kind of an important place. I could switch it. I could say, this is my orientation, and then this is kind of the most important place. Or I could even go like this. Ooh, I like that. Maybe that's my most important place. You know, with these watercolor doodles, you can kind of do whatever you want. I'm probably not, I do really like this little weird line that I made. If you haven't seen the watercolor doodle video, you'll see that I just, you know, literally just rolled my wrist around with a pen with ink on it. But since I already told you in a prior video that this was a mistake, this burnt sienna, probably not going to use that as my focal point. So I think I'll go ahead and keep it like this and mix up a green. Now I do have some yellow on this yogurt lid, and I have some blue here and some green over here. So let's just see. That's not going to be dark enough to do much to that because watercolor is transparent. You can just kind of see like, yeah, I mean, it adds some yellow. I guess it adds a little bit. We can give that a try. Kind of glaze that over it. But you'll see here that I have this hard line right here. Now maybe I don't like that hard line. Maybe I want it, but usually with watercolor, we want lost and found edges. So if I just run water over that, then I've softened that edge. I can also come in with more of a blue. Let's charge into it now. Let's charge into our glaze. So I'm gonna mix up another green with more blue. And then since it's already wet, I can just kind of charge that in and it will naturally soften as it moves around in the water. All right. One other area that I would like to address is this area. I really like how I did this with ink. I just wetted the ink before it dried. So I like how it made that line, but I'd like to make that a little bit more. And let's spritz again. I have this nice cobalt violet here. So let's go ahead and get some of that. And then charge this in here. Now I'm gonna lose these lines a little bit, which, you know, maybe I don't wanna do that, but for purposes of showing you how to do it, I will go ahead and sacrifice my line. And I see, you know, a little bit of brush, you know, hard line there that maybe I'm not a total fan of. So let's just kind of take our wet brush and kind of soften those. And, you know, now I have quite a bit of water there that's pooling. So I'm just going to rinse off my brush and not rinse it off, pat it dry. And I can kind of take care of that. And now I have a nice soft line. All right. So that's how you do glazing to add value. And we already have, you know, kind of a lot more interesting things happening here. Other than all the shadow that I'm getting, maybe that's better. Okay. So we already have a lot of, interesting value and stuff happening. I think I would like this one to be a little darker. This is technically glazing, but I don't really have to soften anything because it's such a small space. I'm just painting it. And yeah, and then I'll just kind of keep moving around and playing with it. Now you see that even with really heavy quality paper, high quality paper, it is buckling a little bit right here. That's why it's glued down to this block. And it will flatten out after it's dry, so that's fine. Now, of course, you know what will happen if I, let's say over here in this spot that's wet, if I touch into that, it's gonna run. Weird fuzzy here. Oh, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm getting some very interesting. So this is kind of, now I'm having a pool of water here, which is just not really helpful for anything. I can do a couple of things. I can use my paper towel. I can squeeze out my brush and pick it up. That technique works much better with a natural hair brush. But then I get a little movement in there, and maybe I'll even, now that it's wet, maybe I'll even add, a bit of a color over here. If I keep my paper tilted, I can keep this blue from running back into the yellow, into the pink. If I go like that, it's gonna run into the pink. But if I keep it this way, it won't. And then maybe I'll just kind of tap out my brush and lift that a little bit so that it's not such a weird line. All right, so let's look at that with a lesser quality paper. This is my Stillman & Burns sketchbook. It's so far my favorite sketchbook. It's hard to find, a lot of watercolors, professional watercolors make their own sketchbooks because it's hard to find the right paper in a book. Because the paper I was just using, the Fabriano Artistico, they don't make sketchbooks like that. But the Stillman & Burns is a nice balance between the smoothness enough to draw on and enough that you can do stuff with the paint. So now I'm just gonna take, a couple of these and show you what I would do to glaze on paper that's not quite so tolerant of water. And I think we'll start with this. These are my Winsor, I did a sketch of my Winsor & Newton ink bottles. I got a set of 8 of these cute little bottles, which are great ink. I've tried many different kinds and I really am liking those. And my light is coming from here. I've made a little note to myself. So I'm trying to keep this side with my highlights, but I do want a little more color in like places like this. So let's get some of this purple. Just mixing up kind of a dark purple. And then let's add some color here. Now some of this I'm just gonna be painting and I won't probably do much with it. But on this side, I will. I mean, it's called glazing either way, but it's just that usually when we glaze, we're kind of softening a little bit. Now some of that's fine, that's just gonna be a shadow. But maybe right here, I don't want it to be so thick or so dark. So I'm gonna rinse my brush, tap it out, and then just pull some of the paint I've already put down, just pull that in different places. Maybe over here and on the edge here. And like that. Now this works well for this kind of object because it is an angular object. It's a man-made object, so I don't have to soften all the lines. I can just leave some of them hard. Let's do a little glazing here. Actually, let's do this black one. This is black ink. So I'm taking a little, I don't use black, but I have a Payne's blue-gray that's very dark. And I've left a little highlight there, that's nice, but I do want a little more value here, maybe where it's touching the ground. And then maybe I don't want quite a hard line there, so I just rinse off my brush, maybe top it off a little bit, and then kind of lift it, but you can see it already started to dry because the paper just kind of absorbs really quickly. But that's okay, I can just come in with more black paint, and now that I've wet it, it makes a very natural soft line. Let's try that one more time on the orange. So for the orange, I'm gonna have to come over here and clean off this is the warm, technically the warm section of my palette, although it gets dirty with blue. Blue and purple just kind of turn everything cool. So if I'm gonna keep my colors perfect, not perfect, but keep my colors more pure, I'm gonna have to clean that out. It probably will make sense for me to clean that out more at some point because I do have a lot of dark in there, but let's see if I can just mix up a little bit of orange. This is why I keep yogurt lids around. I'm seeing a dog hair in my palette. Try to avoid that. Now to mix orange, I need yellow and red, of course, but I do not need very much red. Look how I took just a little smidge and it totally overpowered that yellow. So let me go ahead back into the yellow and see if I can, there we go, that's better. Okay, and with this paint, I'm gonna go ahead and darken this. You can see where I dropped some of the red ink here. And I'm just painting around, making it a little darker, a little more defined. Kind of covering some of that bleed from the black, which I don't particularly want, on my orange. And then, let's see, let's touch a little bit more orange here and then rinse my brush, tap it off. I don't have to get all the paint off. I just want to have the brush wet enough that it will kind of lift. Now I can also squeeze my brush out and use it as a sponge and maybe lift some of that off the top where the light would be hitting. And the reason I'm getting a little better coverage here than you would think is because cadmium yellow, which is what this is actually kind of an opaque color. So it makes it a little easier for me to cover some of this. If I had left that orange, I could have covered some of the leaking. This would be an example of a place where, even though a lot of times when, let's see, where watercolor blends, we kind of like the look. This would be a place where I did not like the look. I didn't like that blue or black bleeding into the orange on top of there, especially when this is supposed to be my light source. So I'll probably go over that with maybe some gouache or something to kind of lighten that up. Obviously this is a sketch. I already did a big blob there. It's not a tragedy, but just as an example. So now let me show you on this yellow here. I'm gonna go ahead and leave that because the light is really coming on this. But I've put some paint there and I can go ahead and just kind of soften that out. Yeah, so this paper actually glazes really nicely if you don't, scrub too much at the paint and do too much with it. So, final example. Oh, geez, almost dropped my tea. This is drawing paper. It's 70-pound drawing paper. This is a great pad for working on your pencil. Sorry, I lost something. Working on your pencil drawing skills because the paper will handle a lot of erasing. One thing it does not handle so well, and to become a better drawer, you need to be willing to. Well, actually, let's just talk about that for a second. Animals are a great thing to learn to draw because they require a little more precision than a flower or a doodle, but they're not as hard as human faces. So this one, I erased this part probably 5 times before I got it even kind of right. And this paper handles that very well. Now I've sprayed a matte fixative over it so that I can't smudge it around. So that's nice on your drawing pads. And that's for just working on your drawing skills. But I also prepared a couple spheres for us to look at how it is to glaze on drawing paper. Now it's going to be the same technique, except I'm just not going to be able to do as much with the paper, meaning no scrubbing around. I'm going to have to get my paint color kind of correct the first time because I kind of only have one shot at it. So let me go ahead and I'll just get some of this more neutral pink goop down here. I'm just going to try to, this is a great exercise to do a sphere to work on your glazing. Just kind of do a page of different colors of spheres. Leave a highlight where the light is shining. Obviously you can see my highlights are curved because it's a sphere. And now I feel like I have kind of a nice pink to go ahead, and I'm rolling my brush around in the paint. And now if the light's coming this way, this would be the darkest spot, right? So I'm just gonna kind of come in here. And I can try to soften that. I should soften it because the line is weird. And now I kind of want to make it a little rounder. But you can see that the paper is starting to buckle. And I don't know if you can see that actually, but the paper is starting to buckle. It's not super happy with all of that action with the water, but that's okay. You know, I mean, if this is all you have and you want to give it a try, then just go for it. It's just, you know, you just have to not tinker with it so much, basically. So now I'm going to mix a darker cool color for this one. Looks like I have some green down here. This is a good excuse to clean out my palette. Go ahead and use this stuff. And then we'll do the same over here. This time I'll try to do a better job. Yeah, kind of going around. Now I can also, after it dries, or even let's do it now, just so you can see what happens. Maybe I want to give this one even more dark, furthest from the light. I can go ahead and drop that in. It's all right. It's buckling, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And it will still dry and show. It's just, it's not quite as fun to do a whole painting this way. And you can really see, if you're trying to do, for example, on drawing paper, let's say you're trying to do a sky and you want to do kind of a flat wash. This is where, I mean, basically on drawing paper, I would never do a background. I would only, or a very little background. I wouldn't try to do too much heavy spots of water on the drawing paper. So let me just show you that. I'm just getting a little blue here. And I'm tilting my paper so that gravity will work with my bead. But let's say that I'm doing a flat wash here. I'm doing a sky, for example. I mean, first of all, the paper is so fine that it's kind of, it's too slippery, which I kind of like the tooth of like a cold press paper. And it's working all right, you know. I probably touched my hand here with lotion or something, which is why that's not adhering. I mean, it did all right, but the paper is really buckling. It's like lifting off the page. You can kind of see, actually maybe I can show you this way. See how much it's lifting off the book? So that's fine. You know, I can still use this and draw on it or something, but this is just why if you're learning watercolor on this kind of paper, you'll be really happy when you get to real watercolor paper. But, you know, if you don't want to spend the money on watercolor paper, just get whatever makes you want to paint. But just remember that you just have to work a little faster, and there's no scrubbing and moving stuff around. You just got to put it down and let it go, which is frankly a good exercise even in and of itself. So I hope that helps you. Keep working at it. Do it with a doodle or with spheres or something where you're not ruining a whole drawing. And then, you know, you feel more confident to add darker values when you do have a more complicated drawing, to go ahead and glaze in some deeper values there. Thanks.